Hi, Michael.
Hi.
Today's question is, what could you add or share about the following text from Face to Face? Professor Aiyer, who in his old age stayed with his son at Tiruvannamalai, told the following to Ganesan. In Bhagavan's daily life, one noticed personal cleanness, tidiness of dress, habitual wearing of vibhuti and kumkum on the forehead, equal sharing of all enjoyment with those around him, strict adherence to a time schedule, performing useful work, however low it may be, never leaving a work unfinished, the pursuit of perfection in every action, incessant activity, except while sleeping or resting, after a spell of hard work, never considering oneself superior to others, speaking the truth always, or strict silence if the expression of truth would hurt or lower the reputation of others, perfect self-help, never asking another to do a piece of work which can be done by oneself, taking full responsibility for failure, if any, without shifting the blame on others, accepting success or failure with equanimity, never disturbing the peace of others, leaving the leaf plate clean after eating, complete non-interference in the affairs of others, never worrying about the future. These are the lessons Sri Ramana taught by example to his devotees.
Yes, in a sense, but each one of us sees Bhagavan according to our own understanding. What Bhagavan is what Bhagavan actually is something way beyond our understanding. So whatever picture, that if we read the biographies of Bhagavan or stories about Bhagavan, reminiscences about Bhagavan, everyone gives their own picture of Bhagavan. But however people describe Bhagavan or whatever they say about Bhagavan's life and narrate incidents, their view is limited. And I'm not saying just about them, the view of all of us is limited. So long as we rise as ego, we have a limited view. So we cannot understand the greatness of Bhagavan in all its fullness. So, but everyone learnt lessons from Bhagavan, both from his words and from his actions, from how he lived his life. But the lessons we learn is according to our maturity of mind. Some of these points that are listed here, for example, never considering oneself to be superior to others. That's a very good one. Bhagavan exemplified, and Bhagavan was humility personified. And that's a very good lesson to us. That is, humility is the beginning and end of spiritual practice. That is, whatever type of spiritual practice we may do, it's all useless if it doesn't inculcate humility. Humility means the subsidence of ego, and that is the sole aim of all spiritual practices. So humility is absolutely fundamental. So some of these are very, very crucial. But other things that are mentioned here, like personal cleanliness, tidiness of dress. Well, it wasn't very difficult for Bhagavan to be tidy because he had only one kopeen. But yes, according to some people, yes, even his kopeen he wore in a very neat and tidy manner. We can say that. But some of these strict adherence to a time schedule, this is all according to our life. Bhagavan, in the later part of Bhagavan's life, because he himself wasn't part of the institution. Bhagavan sometimes said, this ashram has nothing to do with me. People have come here, and for their own convenience, they built this ashram around. I never asked anyone to build an ashram for me, but for their own convenience, they want somewhere to come and stay, and they want food to be served and everything. So the ashram is the devotee's ashram. Bhagavan often indicated he doesn't consider himself part of the ashram. Once it was customary from the early days, but poor feeding should be done before devotees are fed in the ashram. So before ashram meals are served, food will be distributed to sadhus and other poor people who come. One day there was some important function, maybe Bhagavan's Jayanti or Deepam, or on some occasion, the puja that was going on in the temple, in Matrabhuteshwara temple, was taking longer than usual. So the people who had come for free food, the sadhus and the poor people, they were becoming a bit impatient. So they started asking, when are we going to get our food? When are we going to get our food? So Chinnaswami, who attaches a lot of importance to the puja to his mother's temple, he got angry with them. And he said, paradises will be fed afterwards. Paradesi means, paradesam means other places. So people from it means outsiders. So paradises will be fed afterwards, he ordered. Unfortunately for him, this was overheard by Bhagavan. So Bhagavan quietly slipped out and went off to Palakottu. So when finally the puja was over, the dining hall bell was rung, and people started queuing up to go into the dining hall. But where is Bhagavan? People started saying, oh, what happened to Bhagavan? Did you see where Bhagavan went? And someone said, oh, we saw him going in the direction of Palakottu. So they went off and they eventually found him sitting under a tree in Palakottu. And when they asked him, Bhagavan, the dining hall bell is rung. And he said, okay, then you all go and eat in the dining hall. And they said, no, Bhagavan, won't you come? No, not necessarily. You go and eat in the dining hall, he said. Then they came back and reported to Chinnaswami. Chinnaswami, Bhagavan says that we should all eat, and he doesn't seem to be showing any interest in coming to eat. And then Chinnaswami thought, or maybe someone thought, or maybe Bhagavan is feeling unwell. So among the devotees, there was one or two doctors. So they asked the doctors to go and ask Bhagavan whether he's had his tummy upset or anything. So they went and asked him. Bhagavan said, no, I'm fine. You all eat first. I will eat afterwards. They said, no, Bhagavan, we can't eat without you. Bhagavan said, no, I can't eat now. Pichan, his pet name he used to call his younger brother. Pichan has given an order, but paradises will be fed afterwards. I am also a paradesi, so I will wait my turn. You all eat, because you all belong to the ashram. I have nothing to do with the ashram. So Bhagavan considered himself, even though everyone called it Ramanashram and they considered it Bhagavan's ashram, Bhagavan himself considered himself as an outsider. He had nothing to do with him. But because he was given a place to live in the ashram, that was his view. And since the ashram as an organization, you have to run things in an orderly way. So there was a certain time schedule when meals were served and when things would happen. So Bhagavan followed the schedule. So it wasn't of his own volition, but Bhagavan was following a strict time schedule in order not to disturb the time schedule that had been laid down by the ashram management. Bhagavan adhered to it. So to say strict adherence to a time schedule, it gives the impression Bhagavan is a very disciplined person, but it's not like that. Bhagavan doesn't want to cause trouble to anyone. So he keeps a low profile. He causes the least trouble to anyone. So if others have a time schedule, he will also, without any complaint, he'll follow the time schedule. If ashram meals time is delayed because of puja, he won't complain. But if Chinnaswami says, but if other people complain and Chinnaswami says that, okay, all outsiders should be fed afterwards, Bhagavan said, okay, I'm also an outsider. I'll go and wait my turn. So he slipped off to Palakottu. So there are many lessons we can learn from Bhagavan's life, but what those lessons are, that each person will take the lessons according to their own level. So Professor N.R. Krishnamurti Aiyer, he was a professor in a college. So as a professor, there were lectures at a particular time. He had to follow certain routine. So for him, adhering to a time schedule was very important, and he expected all his students to appear in a time schedule. If students come in 10 minutes, 15 minutes late, naturally, as a professor, he's going to be angry with them. Why you're coming late? So he wants everyone to follow a time schedule. So when he saw Bhagavan is also following a time schedule, Bhagavan is setting a very good example of that we should strictly adhere to a time schedule. But when Bhagavan was living on the hill, when he was living on his own, he was least bothered about any time schedule. If food comes, he'll eat it. If food doesn't come, he'll keep quiet. So the lessons we have to learn from Bhagavan are very, very deep and very subtle, but each person will take levels, will draw inferences from Bhagavan's actions at their own level. It is like if a child in kindergarten goes to a university and sees a university lecture, and he will see the lecturer may be writing things on the board. And then the child concludes, here also they teach ABC. Because in his school, they write ABC on the board. He's also writing letters on the board. So he's also teaching ABC. So everyone sees according to their own, Bhagavan once said, the jnani is like a mirror. The mirror has nothing of its own, but whatever comes before it, it reflects. So the jnani reflects people. So everyone sees in Bhagavan, what people see in Bhagavan is a reflection of their own state of mind. So though it's nice to try and learn lessons from Bhagavan's example, from the example of how Bhagavan lived his life, but we shouldn't limit Bhagavan according to our small view of him. Bhagavan is something way, way greater than that. So there's some of these points that I say, there are some good things. Non-interference in the affairs of others. Bhagavan exemplified that. Though it was supposed to be his ashram. He never interfered, or sometimes he interfered. If many things weren't. The ashram management, it's a human institution. Any human institution will have its imperfections. So there all sorts of things happened in the ashram, which some people, there will always be people who complain also. Sometimes people used to come and complain, Bhagavan, the ashram management is doing this and doing that. Bhagavan said, did you come here to reform the ashram management? To attend to that for which you've come. So Bhagavan himself, sometimes on very rare occasions, he would intervene, but in a very subtle way. Like when Chinnaswami said, paradises will be fed afterwards, Bhagavan taught a very nice lesson by himself going and sitting outside. So he interfered, even when he interfered, he did it without interfering. He's not interfering. Chinnaswami is given an order, he obeys the order. He goes and sits in Palakottu and waits for everyone else to eat first. So we can't accuse him of interfering, but he taught a lesson. So Bhagavan's way Bhagavan's ways are very, very, very subtle. So we can't, that is, we can take nice points, but we shouldn't try and limit Bhagavan. It's true, Bhagavan said explicitly in Nana, as far as possible, one should not interfere in what concerns other people. Anya karatil pravesika kodadu. You should not interfere you should not intrude into other people's business, into other people's affairs. So he exemplified that by his actions, yes. So as I say, very nice things here, but I wouldn't take, some of the things seem a bit like a kindergarten child concluding that the professor in the university is teaching ABC, because he happens to be writing some letters on the blackboard.
And I think that many of these points too, people can act in the same way, maybe like a collateral effect of the teachings or of the practice. I mean,
the thing is,
after a certain period of practicing, maybe you develop those behaviors also.
Bhagavan didn't give do's and don'ts. Why he didn't give, sometimes he said things like, as far as he gave some advice, as far as possible, it's better not to interfere in the affairs of others. But apart from a few things like that, generally he didn't give any do's and don'ts. Like he didn't say you had to be maintain personal cleanliness, you have to wear a very tidy dress. He didn't say anything like that. But what the only thing he advised us is to turn within, investigate what we are, and thereby surrender ourselves. That is the sum and substance of all he taught. Why didn't he teach anything else? Because if we are following his path, all these other qualities will naturally accrue to us. We'll naturally be kind and compassionate. We'll naturally feel concern for others when we hear them. So if all we need to do is to follow Bhagavan's path, and our outward actions will naturally, slowly come into line, and we'll naturally act in a more appropriate way. What is it that prompts us to act inappropriately? It's our will. By turning our attention within, we are curbing our will, and thereby we're reducing the extent to which we're acting inappropriately. If we stop acting inappropriately, in other words, stop acting according to our will, whatever actions are done by our body, speech, or mind will be according to prarabdha. We can't be faulted for that.
But it seems to me that the Ramana's body mind was at times where, for the stories I've heard from you and other sources, that he was unpredictable at times.
Yeah,
that,
he was.
I mean,
yes.
maybe he behaved in a way, and one day he said something that he gave a lesson unexpectedly to someone who needed it in a way.
Bhagavan acts in an appropriate way according to the circumstances. So how he acts on one occasion, he may act quite differently on another occasion, because it's according to what is appropriate, according to the needs of the people who are there at that time. So it's very, very difficult. Like we hear so many stories about Bhagavan, and when I was first in Tiruvannamalai in the 1970s, there were still many old devotees, and there'll be so many stories are recorded in books. If you ask a certain old devotee about a particular incident, they'll say, "Oh no, it wasn't like that. It was like this." And if you go and ask someone else, they say, no, it wasn't like that. It was like this. The same story. Some things that you have diametrically opposed views. Someone said, Bhagavan, on that occasion, Bhagavan said this. Oh, no, Bhagavan would never say like that. So many different views, because who are we to say Bhagavan will act like this or won't act like that? Of course, we need to use our judgment. There are so many stories. I mean, anyone can make up any cock and bull story about Bhagavan. So we have to use our discrimination when we read stories. How does this fit in with how we would expect Bhagavan normally to act? We may be wrong. Sometimes our judgment may go wrong. That's why we can never be sure about these stories. There were some stories that were that is the first written biography of Bhagavan. The first published biography was B.V. Narasimha's self-realization. And later, the next book was Ramana Vijayam in Tamil, which was written by Sudhananda Bharati and was more or less following. I mean, substantially, it was the same as self-realization, but written in his own way. And then other biographies came. So there were some stories in those books, which everyone assumed, because it's printed in the book, it's true. But later on in Bhagavan's life, he would just casually say, in some context or other, "Oh, it said like that, but it wasn't actually like that." He would. Why he didn't say so at first, we can't say. Like but just one example, it's written, but about Bhagavan's second death experience on Amai Parai, on the Tortoise Rock. that for many years, that was printed in books, and for many years, people were believing that was Bhagavan's second death experience. But towards the end of his life, he one day said, that wasn't the second death experience, that was the last one. Between the first time it happened in Madurai, when he turned his attention within, and he turned his attention within, in some books it's recorded, but Bhagavan enacted death. Bhagavan said, no, it wasn't enacting. The body actually became lifeless for 20 minutes. But because Bhagavan didn't say that, he said somehow the body, that life came back to the body. Obviously, it's because of divine grace. That body had a function to fulfill. But Bhagavan said between that first time and that last time on Amai Parai, it happened many times, but his body would just become lifeless for 10, 15, 20, 25 minutes, something like that, and then suddenly come back to life again. The only occasion that was witnessed by someone was that incident on Amai Parai, because Parani Swami happened to be with Bhagavan that day. And when Bhagavan sat down, he thought Bhagavan was maybe the hot heat of the sun or something. So he thought maybe Bhagavan is feeling a bit lightheaded. So he waited for Bhagavan. And then he saw Bhagavan's body. Bhagavan was sitting there and his body was just becoming pale like a corpse. And he said, Bhagavan. I mean, he understood Bhagavan's body had died. So he embraced him and was weeping. And after some 20 minutes, suddenly life came back. But because that was the only thing that was witnessed, and that Parani Swami would have told others, so everyone came to know Bhagavan's second death experience. Only after many, many years, Bhagavan said, that wasn't the second one, that was the last one. So there are so many incidents, even though they were written in the books in Bhagavan's lifetime, we can't say it's exactly as it is. Like the accounts of Bhagavan's death experience, the first one in Madurai, people have recorded it in different ways. Bhagavan used, in some context, Bhagavan once used the term avesam. Avesam means like possession, like possession by a ghost or something. But he used that term metaphorically. But someone recorded that and they blew it up into a big thing. But Bhagavan had this sort of possession, and then people exaggerate, because everyone sees what Bhagavan says. They understand it through the filter of their own mind. They're not deliberately trying to mislead, but because they understand it in a certain way and narrate it according to what they've understood, it becomes distorted. And some stories, they're passed on from one person to another person to another person. If I tell you a story and you tell someone else and they tell someone else and they tell someone else, inevitably things get distorted because each person, it goes through the filter of one more mind. So the stories about Bhagavan, as I said last time we spoke, we have to take them with a pinch of salt, because everyone views Bhagavan through their own colored glasses, the colored glasses of our own ego. So until we are egoless, we cannot say we've understood Bhagavan correctly. That doesn't mean that there are nice stories, and stories are instructive, and we can draw nice lessons from Bhagavan's life. But we need to be very cautious when with regard to the stories. With regard to the teachings, Bhagavan himself has written in Nana, Uludana, Upadeshundya, Arunacha Stuti Panchakam. These works, there we have Bhagavan's teachings written by himself. So there's no doubt about these. So that we can rely upon entirely. But stories, Bhagavan didn't write any story about himself, because according to him, it's all just a dream. He didn't attach any importance to these things.
No autobiography, nothing.
No. Well, some of the verses in Arunacha Stuti Panchakam are, we can say, autobiographical in a sense, like the first couple of verses of Arunacha Ashtakam. It's not strictly autobiographical, but it has a certain element of autobiography. I mean, yes, he does. He says it from my young age, Arunachal was shining in my mind as something Mihaperidu, something very great. And how when he turned within to see Vasya. So Bhagavan has given autobiographical things in poetic form. And also in Ulidu Napadu, the second Mangalam verse, Marana Baya Mikku Ammakal, those who have intense fear of death, that's purely biographical. Autobiographical.